So being Palestinian does not necessarily mean an Arab, although I am an Arab Palestinian. And being Palestinian doesn't mean Muslim. It's true, most Palestinians are Muslims. However, there are in historical Palestine 6 main religions: Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Samaritism, Baha'is, Ahmadiyya, Druze, and before 1948, there were 1 million Jews who lived in the Arab world. So being even a Palestinian Jew was a reality. Palestinian Christians have our roots back to the 1st century. Many of us are indigenous to the land. We have not known any other land but historical Palestine, and our roots are deep in the land. I, for myself, and my family, we've been residing in Jerusalem since the beginning of Pentecost, since the birthday of the church, close to 2,000 years ago. Many factors have affected us as Palestinian Christians throughout our history, whether it is from the early Roman persecution, whether it was the dogmatic debates within our churches and our traditions, whether it was the coming of Islam that came in the 7th century and changed the rulers from Christians to Muslims, which affected the dynamics of our communities, to the coming of the Crusades, the different Crusades that have taken place in our land, and the violence that they have caused and the disturbance to the already fragile Muslim-Christian relations, to the coming of the State of Israel. Before 1948, 20% of the population, from 15 to 20% of the population, were Palestinian Christians. And until this day, there are Palestinian Christians comprise close to 20% of Palestinians in the diaspora. 9 out of every 10 Palestinians living in Central and Latin America are Christian. 1 out of every 2 Palestinians living in the US and Canada is a Christian, is a Palestinian Christian. And despite that there is less than 1% of the people who are living in Palestine and Israel are identify and practice as Christians. Liberation theology is important for 2 parts. One part is that to challenge and to combat the misuse of the Bible and Christianity to justify Zionism and the disposition of our people. Christian Zionism predates Zionism. For over 100 years now, a new ideology evolved in a way that it is tried to figure out that there is a need, or to develop a theology of the need for the Jews to gather back into the Holy Land, rebuild the temple, so that Armageddon takes place and Jesus is back. And this is a dogma or a theology that is not relevant to the church, that is not part of the historical dogma of the church or the understanding of Christianity, but for multiple reasons it took over many of the churches in the West, specifically in Europe and North America. The most famous or known people to adopt this theology or to sympathize with it was Lord Balfour, who is known for his promise, or for his declaration to give the promised land to establish, for the Jewish people to establish a state. Christian Zionism still resides. They have a strong presence in North America, specifically in the US, specifically in the Bible Belt, where they continue to use the Bible to justify the disposition of the Palestinian people. Not only taking over the land and establishing the State of Israel, but also for the destruction of Al-Aqsa Mosque and rebuilding the temple and advocating for Armageddon. A theology at its base is very easily could be easily dismantled and challenged. However, many people tend to like or to feed into the myths of Christian Zionism. Although it is dying and it is being challenged very heavily in Western Europe and in North America, sadly, it is gaining many power in Africa, um, China, South Korea, and other parts of the world, including Latin America, sadly. So, Palestinian Palestinian theologians wanted to respond to the theology of Christian Zionism, to dismantle it, to challenge it, and to show that it has nothing to do within the teachings of Christ. Palestinian Christians and our churches, all of the church leaders signed the document, the Jerusalem Declaration, labeling Christian Zionism as a heresy, as a false teaching of the church, and it should be combated. Sadly, not all churches or all Christians are comfortable to listening to the church and traditional authorities within the church, and popular culture in one way or another takes control of people's imagination and language. So Palestinian Liberation Theology wants to challenge the theologies of Christian Zionism, but also on the other side, Palestinian Liberation Theology wants to inspire people to do foolish stuff. I mean, foolish stuff is inspired by the Franciscan prayer, the famous Franciscan prayer that calls people to be blessed with foolishness so that they are able to challenge, to make a difference in the world, to challenge systems of oppression, to make the world a better place. And faith, in a way, if we are naive and simple and basic like children, and I say it in a positive way, we can be pure at our heart and we believe that we're able to do the impossible. And this is faith. Faith is that you believe that you are able to do the impossible. And this is what us as Palestinians, faith is an important part of our resistance movement because it helps us to know that even us with the very little that we have, tools and friends and connections and resources, that we are able to challenge the superpowers of the world. Veto after another veto, the US, the UK, and France have continuously, mainly the US, but with other superpowers, they have been, and our other powers of the world, they have continued to use their power to deprive Palestinians from the rights that are enshrined in international law and UN resolutions. Palestinians are not allowed to go back. Palestinian refugees are not allowed to go back to their homes because of decisions made by superpowers and the powerful in the world. Palestinians are not able to live freely or to choose freely their leadership because of international interference. Yet Palestinians still believe that that justice is mightier than the sword, that people are that truth is still our source of power, and we are able to challenge the world. Although many of us as Palestinians believe that we stand alone in our fight against the powers of the world, but we know that this is also not true. We are also blessed with many friends around the world who see and recognize the dehumanization, the injustice that is being inflicted on our Palestinian people, and they stand in solidarity with our people. Similar to the group, whether you are here just to learn or to be introduced to a new topic or a familiar topic, or because you're here just to show solidarity with any movement that is happening within our people, so that you'll be able to come and be a difference, stand with the people who are on the margins, the people who are struggling against all odds. We are a movement, we are a powerful movement that we base our values on three important pillars. One pillar is the inclusivity of God. We believe that God does not prefer one group over another, regardless of your ethnicity, of your religion, of your color of skin, of your if you're a person who's good or evil, regardless of your gender or sexual orientation. God loves us all because we are all God's children and we were all created by God equally. There is no preference of one group over another. We are all loved in the same way by God. And this is actually, this challenges all forms of racism and prejudice and favorism and tribalism that exist around the world, based um, on any identity that people wish to feel that they are a little bit more special or more special than the person who is next to them. So inclusivity is very important to us, and we use this inclusivity to show that everybody should be equal in front of the law, and the law of the world today is international law. No country should have impunity to override international law, whether it is um, Russia, whether it is China, whether it is the United States, whether it is Iran, whether it is Palestine, and especially if it is Israel. Everybody should abide by international law. The second pillar of our values is we stand firmly um, with, with, with justice. Justice is the most mentioned word in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. We understand that justice is fundamental to every teaching of Jesus Christ. We do not believe that you can be faithful to God if you are not a genuine and a strong voice for justice and peace and conciliation. Justice is extremely important. We work with justice as a restorative act to bring people together. We do not believe in ultimate justice. Justice requires also compromise on both parts, and this is a fundamental part of our teachings. How can we use justice or restorative justice to reach reconciliation? The third part is nonviolence. We believe in the power of nonviolence. It is regardless of what the world wants us to believe that that you can only overcome power by power, might by might. Sword is the most powerful tool. It is not true. People who have done the research show that um, non-violent revolutions have have a much higher, 400 times the probability of succeeding than violent revolutions. Non-violent revolutions have a 90% success rate to have a democratic state and a state that would respect the rights of its citizens than violent revolutions. Sadly, many of the violent revolutions end up with dictatorships and corrupt regimes. So non-violence has worked because it is a tool of the masses. Everybody is able to use non-violence. Everybody is able to march in the streets. Everybody is able to boycott. Everybody is able to divest. Everybody is able um, to refuse to be part of a system that oppresses other people. When the people come together, we are unstoppable. And people are able to come together based on non-violence. This is the tool where women and children and men and the elderly and the people with disabilities, everybody is able to work together and to reduce the risks. Not everybody is trained, is willing, or um, um, is interested in carrying arms and fighting the others. Non-violence helps us to recruit people not only from our communities and our friends, but even from the people who oppress us. Non-violent movements contribute to bring in Israeli friends, Jewish friends, Christian friends, Muslim friends, um, people of all different colors and traditions to come and we work together. That is why we as Palestinians, as civil society, we value the tools of non-violence. Most well known is the BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions. That is a brilliant tool, an effective tool that everybody can use, whether it's to make it and to challenge your elected officials, whether it's to sign petitions, to have talks as we are having here to help to educate people and to bring people to be more aware of the injustice that is taking place. But not only to be aware, but also willing and able and effective in responding to every form of oppression that is taken. Non-violence helps to dismantle every tool of empire. It was interesting for me. 2 days ago, I was in the South Hebron Hills villages. And I was leading a delegation that was mainly European journalists. Um, and they're really cool friends of ours, and many of them have actually have covered other conflict zones around the world. So they're very much familiar to conflict zones. And as we were in this small community in the West Bank, um, into this small community in the West Bank, the armies noticed our presence, and the military doesn't like when journalists are around, and they don't like when there are internationals around, especially in areas where there is human rights violation. They do not want the world to know. They do not want because when people know, people tend to more to be willing to act. And we started to see from the distance multiple military jeeps coming together and starting to drive to our location. Our location is we were in a Bedouin community with very basic structures. Um, some were tents, but some were also made from very simple structures just to protect people from the rain. And it was a very rainy day. There was a lot of rain happening. And it wasn't only the army who was joining us. We could identify that there were groups of militias, Israeli right-wing settler militias. So they would be dressed as soldiers, but they are not part of the Israeli soldiers or the army system. They have machine guns, they're armed, but they do not answer to the army, nor do they have accountability to Israeli laws. And a group of soldiers came, and we were a group of 20 locals. And there was, in addition to us, there was also another group of uh, of the journalists who were internationals, around 10 people, and there were some activists from different other communities that were with us. And when the army came, they came with their battle, um, um, with their willingness and readiness to start a battle with the people who are on the ground. And very interestingly, because we were inside one of the structures where it was giving us some kind of protection from the rain, and they were outside in the rain, and they came ready to be challenged and to challenge us and to maybe do some arrests and to use violence. And the first question the first thing when they came with their guns, what we told them is, it's come and have this conversation inside the structure to protect you from the rain. It wasn't in a way that it is our interest is really that we felt that their life was in danger from the rain or that they couldn't handle the rain, but it was a human speaking to a human. We were able to see that behind the mask, behind the guns, behind the uniform, that it was normal people, mainly 18, 19-year-old kids, that we were able to reach to them in their humanity. And by reaching to them, we were helping to deconstruct the language that they've been trained about, that to dehumanize us as Palestinians. And they saw us as Palestinians and activists and journalists, people who are willing to reach out to them. And we show them that we are human. And we show them that we see, also recognize the humanity. In addition, we show them that we are not afraid of, that we are the ones that they came to terrorize us, that we were actually giving them protection from the weather, even though that they did not need it. And so we maintained our humanity. The fourth is, immediately we were able to change the whole tone from aggressiveness, threatening, and so on, to a more human, because they told us thank you. They came to shoot us and arrest us, and they said thank you. We were, honestly, it wasn't like a tactic to pressure them or to put them into to have them say thank you or to do it, because it's actually who we are as Palestinians, as people, as activists, as academics, as journalists. We're humans who believe genuinely in human rights. We believe that human beings are not necessarily evil or are not deemed to be evil. We are not deemed or set on a plan to destroy one another. We try to get them into a conversation to work together and for them to work with us. And immediately when the tone went from being aggressive and violent to the tone of being human humans connecting without us compromising our humanity. Immediately the militias interfered, and they came and they said, enough talking, now it is you leave or we will shoot. So again, they escalated the situation. It means that they recognize that we had, by us being, by us speaking, by us being on the land, that we were able to create that, and they felt that there was a need for reinforcements to the Israeli army by the militia, because they saw that there was people were changing. I don't know. It ended up by the decision of the community that we need to go back to where we come from. There were many children. We didn't want people to get hurt. We know that they are capable of hurting people, and we decided to go back to where we come from, and we visit another community in solidarity. But I don't know what went into the discussions with the soldiers and the militia, or the soldiers on their own, because they saw a community that they came to evict us, a community that wanted them to be protected from the rain, a community that we even offered them hot tea and coffee, a community that showed that we were sitting in a place filled of harmony and peace. And regardless that we were surrounded by soldiers and military jeeps and drones, and we were surveillance and harassed, that we were genuinely at peace. There was no terror in our eyes. We were still laughing as we went on the bus, as we were talking. We were a community of people that doing it. And this is when I really saw, as we were going on the bus with the journalists, completely the soldiers were invisible to us and the militias were invisible to us. I knew that we are unstoppable as people. We are people who are coming together, and we are able to make the world a better place. And we do not see the soldiers as a threat, although we know with an ongoing genocide and hundreds of thousands of people's lives that were destroyed, whether being killed or injured or under the rubble or having their whole properties lost. We understood that we were still the most powerful. And we are the ones who will continue to be on our land and continue to live for tomorrow and make sure that the land and the people do not lose their quality and their values. And they were the ones who were confused and hesitant, and they felt maybe we should have brought more soldiers. Maybe we should have been more violent. Maybe we should have used live ammunition or tear gas. I don't know what was going into their minds, but they were definitely aware that their tactics were not working. And we were very confident that our tactics were working by just people coming together. I want to share with you, I'm very thankful for inviting me to speak. Although it feels very weird because I'm speaking to myself, it feels, and there's like 3 or 4 silent people on the teams. But I trust there's others who are in the room, and I hope nobody that you're able to hear me fine, and things are going well. I just want us to be. I just want to be very thankful for everybody who has attended or has listened to me speak, and for everybody who is interested to learn more, for everybody who is interested to connect, and everybody who is already committed and working together. I want to open it up for questions. I think that would make it easier for all of us to do a little bit of interaction. And I don't know if there are any questions. I understand that there are some technical problems that we're not able to have moderation. Okay, I understand that we will be using Gordon's phone. So please send me type me the questions. I will read them. No need for you to waste your time. Or Okay, so in Islam specifically, there are definitely movements of liberation theology, um, and sadly not inside Palestine. But Islam is a major world religion, and there are strong liberation theologians in South Africa. There are liberation theologians in the US, in the major universities. Liberation theology one started in Latin America, and the purpose of it was to really address the challenges. Because many people, many Christians, when they were reading the Bible felt that it was being interpreted or preached to the poor people by the rich, and it didn't feel fine. And that was why liberation theology encouraged the people in Central America and Latin America to start to liberate, to read the Bible through the eyes of the people who are oppressed and the people who are poor. The same was also in South Africa when South African black Christians started to read the Bible through the eyes of people going through an apartheid and being inspired by the Bible to work for justice and peace. The same thing with Martin Luther King and many liberation theologians in the US and so on, including feminist liberation theology, even theologies of Christians who belong to the LGBTQ community and so on, trying to seek the liberating message. In South Africa, liberation theology started to uh, um, the South African Muslim liberation theology, and many of like Farid Ishaq, one of the most prominent Muslim liberation theologians, because it's very interesting. For South Africa, Islam is a minority among Christians, and the Muslim community played a very important role in resisting apartheid. And for us, as in Palestine, Christians are a minority among mainly Muslim Palestinians. And we played and we continue to play a very crucial um, part of the Palestinian liberation movement. Since the beginnings of the Palestinian liberation movement and until this day, Palestinian Christians are very vocal uh, and working together. So the closest to Palestinian liberation theology, I would think, I would believe that it's the South African liberation theology, but there are many now emerging liberation theologies of many Muslim scholars, newer scholars who are trying to reconcile faith and living into the 21st century, reconciling the emergence of um, um, reconciling, it is finding out like it's trying to liberate Islam from groups like ISIS or radical Muslims who are trying to give a different interpretation from Islam that many people believe that from the true message of Islam. And there is also Jewish liberation theology. Mark Ellis is who passed away a year ago, like a little bit over than a year ago, was also the most respected um, um, Jewish liberation theologian, and his books have inspired, and his work has inspired Palestinian liberation theology, the Palestinian Christian liberation theology. Sabeel, as a movement, we are very much Christ-centered, and we are a Christian organization, but we work very closely with our Muslim and Jewish partners and allies and people from different faiths, where we are really working um, on bringing people together not on based on dogmatic values, but is on real values. Do we all believe in the values of human rights, equality, justice, and can we all advocate for one another? Imagine if the world is not so complicated that we stand and we challenge systems not based on the identity of the victim or the identity of the victimizer, but actually if we refuse certain actions, that we resist these actions strongly, regardless of the identity.
It's like a microphone, so
Um, it is its there's a it is its most people believe that religion should bring people together to maintain the peace, but that's not actually the in our understanding. Religion should be actually sometimes dividing people, disturbing the peace and the silence. Sadly, there's many people around the world are people become silent, people become familiar or used to the forms of injustice that are taking place. And many of us have familiarized ourselves with the different forms of oppression. We have familiarized ourselves with that there's every minute a child is dying from malnutrition. We know how to live with um, with all of the discrimination that is happening and the genocide that's taking place in Sudan or uh, or Nigeria, the persecutions in Nigeria, or the human rights violations in Asia and China and so on. We learn as human beings to live with problems because we know how to maintain the peace. But sometimes religion is actually needs to disturb the places where we are in and where everybody is coming together. So I wanted to challenge one another is that we need to challenge the systems. If we did not challenge the systems of slavery and speak out against it, slavery would continue. If we didn't challenge the system of against women ordination, women would be silent in the church and not present, and so many other forms of that. So bringing people together is not important. So that is number one. Number two, it is if we bring people, it's very difficult to bring people based on dogma, whether they believe in one God, multiple gods, if it's what kind of holy books everybody has, and so on. It's very difficult for religion can be a dividing part if we approach it from a dogmatic level. But if we approach religion as we do from both parts, the first part is from a value base, and our value base is inclusivity, justice, and nonviolence. And we can bring people who respect or value these three pillars of faith that we have. And you will find that these pillars are not only Christian pillars, that they could also found among many Muslims, among Jews, and people of faith, Buddhists, and so on. So if we start to come together and to meet together, not based on dogmas or colors or identities, but based on values, then religion no longer divides us. If our religion and our theology echoes these values. But I don't think that is our purpose is to come together. Our purpose is to stand with the people who are oppressed and the people who are on the margin. Even if we stand alone, it is this is a testimony of faith. And this is the real call in our understanding of being faithful. So we need to understand that it's not about what is effective, it's what makes nonviolence very powerful. First of all, it's a tactic that most people are willing to stand with. So not everybody is able to. When we think about nonviolence, most of us think about nonviolence as like doing something remarkable, standing in front of a tank or going and standing in front of the army and refusing for the army to go. That is truly powerful and important when it comes to nonviolence and the tactics. But we also have to admit that not everybody is able or willing to do this. We have to see what are most people around us are willing to do, step by step. So many people are able around the world are able to write petitions, to vote, to challenge the system, to hold the elected people accountable. Many people are able to boycott, not being complicit with genocide or with the occupation of human rights violations, and not only boycott Israel, boycott every system or every company that their values are not in line with our values as people. And I'm assuming most of us are like are normal people. Where do we refuse the dehumanization of people, the enslavement of people, the abuse of people. So if we are able to stand together collectively and say we will not support or we will not be part or we will not make money of these systems, boycott makes it very accessible. Nobody is going to put you in prison if you buy your chocolate from the supermarket that is a fair trade chocolate or a company that is complicit with human rights abuses and abuses workers and so on. We are able to elect people who are in line with our values, people who are, regardless of ask, be challenge people, challenge your elected officials. If they do not stand with international law, they do not support human rights, if they do not stand with the values that we have, do not vote for them. This is what makes us very powerful. People are able to do by education. Education is non-violent. Sharing stories, writing an article. We need to continue to knock. There's a beautiful saying that says, the ocean is only small drops of water. That's the whole ocean. And because we are millions and hundreds of millions and billions of people, we can move mountains if everybody moves a stone. That was a communist slogan, but it is true. We're able to move mountains together easily if everybody just does their part collectively. And our job is to convince everybody to do their part and for us to be role models of how easy and how doable it is. We should also be learning how to compromise to keep the communities together. We need to compromise so that everybody stays together. But compromising and working together should not be on the expenses of abandoning our values and our system. So definitely, BDS is a strong sanction, a strong action to challenge all forms of oppression around the world, but also using our voice, refusing to be silent, and using every way possible to stand against all forms of oppression. Yeah, most Palestinians, we don't have the same understanding of many countries in the West that Marxism is the devil. So people, it was actually when we were accused of being Marxist or communist or a very far left, it wasn't always seen as a threat, but also for many people it was seen as a compliment. But that was when we started and so on. Of course, the position of the Catholic Church, sadly, in the 80s, and having a strong stand against liberation theology, made many people cautious about how they deal with us. And that made it more difficult for us to begin our work, but they could not stop us. But things changed with Pope Francis. Pope Francis, from the Catholic Church, from moving from a place that they condemned or were very critical of liberation theology globally, to Pope Francis, who was sympathetic or a liberation theology on his in his works, made a very big change. We to resist, you do not need the approval of people in power. You need the approval of your conscience. That is what I strongly believe in. And we resist. We know that we are few against many. We are weak against the strong. But we resist because we have no alternative but to resist. I cannot go to sleep as a victim. I want to go to sleep as part of a liberation movement. It helps us to deal with the trauma, to deal with the suffering. If we only see ourselves as victims, we will suffer. and continue to suffer, and our suffering will never end. But if we see ourselves as a liberation movement, we will sing even if we are in jail. We will share meals even if we are besieged. We would laugh even when the army is surrounding us. We will continue to speak. We refuse to abandon our humanity or the humanity of others. Being part of a liberation is truly liberation. We liberate people from our own fears and our own traumas. And not only us. When we liberate ourselves, we liberate our victimizers from the sin that they conduct. I mean, it's Christian Zionism is not the most prominent theology. I mean, ideology among Christians. It is definitely still a minority, and it's actually losing power in many countries of the world. Although it's gaining many powers in other countries. One part of it is that we are Christian Zionism is there are many reasons for people to be sympathetic with Christian Zionism. Definitely, a big portion of it now is Islamophobia. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So that is the logic that exists. And many people see, especially among the right wing in different countries, that the enemy of the world is Islam and the Islamic religion. And they believe that it is a way to fight it is just being a Christian. So not from a dogmatic, from a cultural part. And a big portion of it is also when it comes to Christian Zionism, why people support Christian Zionism, or people um, um, the media has played a very big role. You know, promoting and supporting books and series like The Rapture and TV evangelists pushing for this idea of people, flying in the air and God is coming and, these people are being raptured and so on. Well, there's no biblical foundations, but it has foundations in stories or bestseller books, created an illusion, and of course with the state of Israel coming and Israel smartly using its name as a country as Israel and using biblical language to show that as if prophecies are being fulfilled, help to feed into the fear and the ignorance and the naiveness of many people. Many of them are good people, but they were manipulated through poor definitions or driven by simplistic interpretation of the Bible to justify the dispossession of the Palestinian people. So I think it's our bad luck is that Christian Zionism was developed by some charismatic leaders in the UK, Scotland, actually, but also caught attention of many Christian leaders and charismatic Christian leaders in the West, in North America specifically. It has and North America being the cultural capital of the world, we may say, with Hollywood and with the power of the media, they were able to reach out to many people. Of course, plenty of I mean, with what was happening with the Cold War also played a very big role in pushing. I mean, capitalism pushing for religion to be a way to confront communism actually fed into the development of capitalistic Christianity and prosperity gospels, which also ended up aligning themselves with Christian Zionism. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate being with you. And I hope we'll be able to connect in a different at a different time in a different meeting. So thank you all and enjoy the rest of your evening and hopefully to see you again